Hello Multiverse, welcome to Omniverse Gamers. My name is Damien Bazzaio. This video is going to dissect another dynamic encounter. We're going to call this one Doppleganger, Chameleon, Imposters. Yeah, I like that. This is an example of a encounter where it's a combat encounter where the party actually does not want to fight because the people they're fighting are innocent and they're being tricked by these doppelgangers who have impersonated their leaders. So the party has rescued the real leader who is being impersonated, and they're trying to bring this leader to the people that are in danger to try to convince them that they're following the wrong people. The party doesn't want to hurt these cat people. They want to convince them that they're being misled, which is not going to be easy. So this encounter is from Pirates of the Ashen Sea. The Chameleon tribe they're basically doppelgangers. They can take the form of anyone they want. They have been literally impersonating the leaders of these various other tribes that the party's been dealing with for they don't know how long. They don't know how. They just know that the chameleons can become anybody. So the chameleons seem to always be one step ahead of them in everything they do, and now they know why, because every plan they've made, every time they've talked to leaders of different tribes, the chameleons were there. The chameleons knew everything that they were doing. They've, finally realized that. It's kind of like the whole inspiration for this is from Deep Space Nine, the changelings and stuff. That's basically what I'm going for this section for what the chameleons are trying to do, basically. So the chameleons are impersonating some of the leaders. Now, previously, the chameleon was the war chief. It was a war chief that was the doppelganger, and so he was kind of feeding things to the leader, and the Tabaxi tribe was under the impression that the chameleons did not exist, that they were a myth, because obviously they've been fed this and they've been been steered to not believe in the chameleons, because the chameleons want to do their thing with autonomy. So having them not believe that you even exist is kind of the best way to it's monsters. And there was even one Tabaxi who was crazy, who they exiled her because she was like, the chameleons are everywhere, and she's kind of like this conspiracy theory kind of cat, and she's not that sane. But the party actually met her when they went to Chameleon Land. They found this Tabaxi, and they thought she was insane as well. And she is very insane, but also she was not wrong. The chameleons are everywhere, and she knew about ways to figure out who was who, basically. Although she assumes everyone's a chameleon. She thought the party was a chameleon. They had to basically prove it to her by showing her their blood. So then they realized, like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? But apparently the chameleons, even though they can take the form of somebody, when you cut them and they bleed, the blood is green. So that's a tell, whereas, everyone else has red blood. So they've had some dealings with these chameleons, and now it's all come to fruition now. A couple sessions ago where the war chief was like, no, we can't. So the party had come to the Tabaxi to try to make an alliance against the chameleons and against the owlbears, who are like the aggressors of this island. This is kind of like before they even knew the chameleons were the aggressors, and over time they've learned this. And as they're trying to make Tabaxi are like, yeah, we'll have an alliance with you, whatever. The matriarch was like, yeah, we're in danger. These owlbears, have been murdering us, so we want to fight the owlbears for sure. And the war chief was like, we can't trust these outsiders. They're trying to, they're just manipulating us. Maybe they're the changelings. How do we know what's going on? And so there was kind of been like this whole political thing going on. The party went to another part of the tribe to make peace with the armadillos and stuff, and they secured peace. Now they're coming back to the Tabaxi to kind of like, oh yay, we want to have this alliance. And when they get back there, no one's there. Everyone's gone. There'll be I'm going to do a sandworm cavern. We'll have that encounter up in a little while. That's basically an encounter where they come back to the Tabaxi homeland and everyone's gone except for the couple teens that they know. And what happened? So the war chief was trying to convince everyone to leave because now these foreigners know where we are. We have to go. We have to go to our other place. We have to go to our sanctuary, which he did not know where it was. He knew that the Tabaxi had a better sanctuary where they really hide way up in the mountains, where they kind of take their fallback position when they're threatened. But he didn't know where it was. So he was trying to convince them as a chameleon for them to go there for safety. But then he knows where they are. So now he's just trying to learn where their stuff is, basically, trying to trick them. Anyway, the party kind of learns that happened, and then they go and they rescue the actual matriarch, the real matriarch, who was at some point there was like a combat. They were arguing, and half the group wanted to leave, half the group wanted to stay, and at some point the matriarch, one of the chameleons, took the form of the matriarch and gave them orders to leave. But then the real matriarch was like, "Hey, this is me, and we don't want to leave." So they had this weird kind of combat. They kind of fight happen. It was like a civil war. Some people didn't believe what was going on. Who was being tricked? Who was not being tricked? It was very confusing for all the Tabaxi people. So then the matriarch had to flee because they didn't know how deep the chameleons were ingrained into their society and stuff. So the matriarch fled to the secret passage, which the teens that they met knew where the secret passage was, so that the party went and they fought some more owlbears and they fought some things off and they rescued the matriarch. So now in this encounter, they have the matriarch with them. They're trying to bring, because the tribe's being led to their secret area to be ambushed, to be murdered, basically, to be ambushed, you know what I mean? So the chameleons will know all their secrets. So the matriarch doesn't want that to happen. She's like, yeah, if you help me rescue my tribe, we'll definitely help you fight the owl bears, fight the chameleons. Like, we're obviously on board with that now because, you know, this situation sucks. So they are going to bring her to this encounter. Now, so they not only have to protect her from dying, they have to use her to convince the other Tabaxi that they're being tricked. She's like their best shot because they're foreigners. They can't be like, yeah, you're being tricked by your own leaders, and they have no reason to believe them. And in fact, the chameleon leaders, the chameleons that have taken over their leaders, have told them that the foreigners have a poison that they want that the guy can let them, that makes you change into something else, and also the poison makes your skin turn green. So whenever they do discover a chameleon, and they basically when the chameleon dies, even whatever form they take, they turn back into a reptile, into the chameleon form, and they have green blood. So when the tribe saw that, they were like, oh my God, maybe these people were right, you know. But then the fake Tabaxi leaders were like, oh no, that's the virus that they give them, or that's the poison. It turns you into a reptile, and that's, you know, we don't want that to happen to you. Also, we're trying to escape the foreigners, so they don't know where we're going, you know. So that's what the party is contending with, this lie and the multiple and the fact that they got to protect the matriarch. They've told them that the matriarch, they know that people can impersonate other people. So the tribesmen are under the impression that the foreigners, the party, are the ones making these fake. They have the fake matriarch with them. So it's a whole big thing. So basically, they go to this waterfall where the Tabaxi is their secret cave, where they don't like to live there, but that's where they hide when they're really, really desperate. They can go down into this little cave, into this mountain area, which is not where they prefer to live, but it's just where they go when they're being threatened. It's like their fallout bunker, if you think about it like that. So I'm going to show you this map. This map is by FantasyMaps. It's they have a lot of cool maps. Go check out their Patreon. Their link's down below. You know, I like these maps, and this was a nice, big, intricate cavern that had a lot of stuff in it, and it has a lot of egress. There's a lot of ways to get out. So I like to come in, and then I didn't know which way the party would go, but it didn't matter on this map because wherever way they went, I could steer the action towards one of the exit points, which is where they're trying to go. Because the chameleons now that the chameleons have found this place, they're like, oh, now we know where all your secrets. Now we want you to come where you're going to be even safer. Come with us. We're going to be even safer in the center of the island, where they are not going to be safe. They're going to be sacrificed. But that's where they're leading them. So now the party's got a time crunch because now they're being led away. So anyway, as you can see, they're going to enter this cavern because the matriarch is very familiar with this territory. This is her homeland, so she knows all the nooks and crannies, and that there's spiders in here. The spiders are set up so if you don't disturb them, they're fine. But if people that go blundering in, it's kind of like a natural defense, whatever. So they're like, oh, okay, well we'll follow you. And we'll be in front of you, but you tell us where to go and whatnot. So they kind of, you know, slowly make their way through this cave. They're listening because, you know, they don't want to kill any Tabaxi. Tabaxi are out here. They're in ambush section. They're ambushing because the chameleons have set them up in different spots for ambushes because they know what's coming and they don't care about the life of the Tabaxi. So the party is like, well, we have to be very careful not to kill anybody, but also convince them that we don't want to die either, and you don't want the matriarch to be killed because they think the matriarch is an imposter. So anyway. So they're going through the cavern here. They make their choices, and at a certain point, they get the rogue gets like an arrow and hits him, and he just, you know, whatever shot him backs away, and he's like, he knows someone's up there shooting at him, and they kind of shout to them, you know, we're not your enemy, and like, we don't believe you, you chameleon bastards, and you're imposters, and we're like, no, we're not, we're on your side, and then they send some attacks in there. But basically, they're just kind of shooting at the ground. The party is like kind of shooting at the ground to entice them to chase them. Basically, they goad this ambush party into chasing them, which is what they want. So as the Paxi are chasing them, they back away. Our druid puts a moonbeam right in the tunnel, right on the first one, right in the tunnel, and it hits him. And he thankfully rolls really low, which is what they wanted, because they don't want to hurt these Tabaxi. And I think he rolled like a 6 damage to those who failed their save throw. So it's not that bad. But as they pass the moonbeam, the party can verify all these Tabaxi that pass the moonbeam, even though they get hurt. And they're like, oh, they come around the corner to fight them. They know they're not chameleons, so they're at least a chance to convince this guy. You know what I mean? They go. So a couple of them come to the moonbeam, and they go through the tunnel. They come south. And as they come around the corner, the party has set up like this, kind of like a wall and kind of like a wall with each other, and the matriarch's right there. She's just like, hey, and she starts calling them out by name. And, I don't have their name. Of course, I don't have their names here. She's like, magic ice, stout silk, wrinkling chains. What would your mother say it, like kind of things like that. Saying things to them that they are familiar with, that only she would, not that only she would know, but the information that she's saying to them is very sensitive. There's stuff that a chameleon wouldn't have learned, and you know what I mean. So they're kind of confused and whatever. Some of them I roll like checks for all the tabaxi to see loyalty checks, based loyalty to the chameleons and loyalty to the matriarch, and I kind of balance the two loyalty checks, which one, whatever, based on what the party's saying, the party's being very convincing, rolling their persuasion checks, the matriarchs being very convincing. So it's kind of like, but then they have the idea that the virus is, the chameleons have fed lies to them, so it's hard to combat lies with truth, because when you're selling the truth, you're stuck with the truth, whereas lies, you can tell people anything they want. So it's a lot easier to lie to people than to tell them the truth. Anyway, it's a lot easier to make people believe a lie than to believe the truth, but they eventually convince these cats, and they don't have to fight them. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. I don't know how many in the map here, but it's 5 or 6 down. We got them down, so we got some people on our side. So they slowly make their way through another ambush. They do really good. They don't want to hurt anybody. They've just been incapacitating them. They're grabbing them. They're doing things. They're moonbeaming them, proving that, slowly getting more and more on their side. So then they come around to the final. They kind of get a sense that they see the leader. They know the matriarch's behind them, the real matriarch. So when they come around the corner and they know the war chief is a chameleon, because the actual war chief is dead. So when they come around the corner, they see the war chief and the leader, and the chameleons basically who are impersonating their leaders, and they're like, they know that one's a chameleon because they have the real chick right behind them. So the druid, they're trying to convince the cats back and forth. They're kind of like a date, like a kind of a standoff in this little tunnel where they got like a big army here and a big army down here, and they're kind of like, oh, you're the liars, blah, 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 blah. So the druid slowly is getting in a spot where he just sends moonbeam right over the top of that leader, the tabaxi leader, the fake tabaxi leader. Of course, even though he passes a save throw, he cannot maintain his shape-shifting, so he crunches into the chameleon form. And he's like, oh, they're trying to get me with the virus, and, I roll persuasion, and the persuasion is okay, but at this point, the tabaxi have been presented with enough evidence, and the matriarch behind the party's shouting truths at them, things that nobody else would ever know about all of them personally. So one by one, they're all just like, oh, maybe this guy is the wrong one, and then when that thing turns into chameleon form, he's just like, and then literally, so the party doesn't have to do anything. The whole tabaxi tribe just like, you've been tricking us this whole time. They turn and they just, it's just, and then, I just do it, describe a scene of just cats just shredding this chameleon right into nothing. And they saved the tabaxi tribe. Now, some of them got away. So this was basically a combat encounter where the party didn't want to fight. Things were attacking them, but they were trying to talk them down as they went. They had to do a diplomatic mission. They didn't have to. They could come kill tabaxi all they want, but then every tabaxi they killed was going to hurt their case when they're trying to tell them, like, no, we're the good guys, you're being deceived, but also we're murdering you. It was one of those, they had to really, really choose and really think and really like plan how this was going to happen, and it turned out great. Like I said, they happened to have a druid with them with moonbeam, which really helped. Which they like, it's a West Marsh, so if they wouldn't have had the moonbeam, they wouldn't have done this mission today. So it was kind of like they used the tools they had to engage in the world and all the exposition that I've given them, and they did this non-combat encounter, which in the end they won. They beat the bad guy, but they didn't do anything. Their goal was to convince the tabaxi that they were being tricked. They proved that they were being tricked, and the tabaxi, they pretty much Les Mis them. We will not be slaves again. They turned on them and just, and then they all we did not have any combat that night at all. That was a good 3-hour session of just really intrigue and slow, talking back and forth, and a lot of like strategic movement and tactical movement and a lot of convincing. And one of our rare sessions where we didn't actually have bash combat, but it worked out great. And they all thought that was really fun and different, like a change of pace. Like I said, they could have done that in numerous ways. They chose to do it the way they did, and it just kind of worked out. And the map was kind of cool. And I could have used more of this map, but they made the choices of where they went. But it didn't matter what choices they made, because I was going to lead them. No matter which egress they went to, that's where they were going to escape to. So yeah, that was an example of a dynamic encounter where every encounter does not have to be a fight. Some fights are not fights. Some fights are fights they don't want to fight. It's very rare to make a fight where the party doesn't want to engage, but this is an example of how you can do that. And it came out really fun, and it was really great. I hope that gives you some ideas for your own game. We are Omniverse Gamers. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. We're trying to keep growing. Hope to see you soon, and keep on gaming.